My best friend stole my life's work, but I got sweet revenge. You know that sinking feeling when the person you trust the most stabs you in the back? Yeah, I didn't just feel it, I lived it. My best friend of over a decade stole something I poured my heart and soul into for years, my life's work. But don't worry, I didn't just sit there and let them get away with it. I fought back, and what happened next was the sweetest revenge I could have ever imagined. Buckle up, because this story is wild. Part 1. The Spark of an Idea. So, a bit of backstory to set the scene. I've always been that person, the one with big dreams and even bigger plans to make them happen. Ever since I was a kid, I had a knack for creating things. Whether it was building elaborate Lego cities or coding little games on my ancient laptop, I just loved making stuff. Fast forward to my 20s, and I had this crazy idea for a project, a combination of everything I was passionate about. It was part art, part tech, and part storytelling. Without giving too much away, let's just say it was something super innovative, the kind of thing that makes people say, "Whoa, how did you even think of that?" And yeah, I was insanely proud of it. The only person who knew the details besides me, my best friend, Sam. Sam and I had been inseparable since high school. We bonded over everything: music, video games, our shared love for overthinking everything. If there was anyone in the world I trusted, it was Sam. I used to joke that they knew me better than I knew myself. When I told Sam about my project, they were all in. "This is genius," they said, eyes practically glowing with excitement. "You're going to change the game with this." Hearing that from them meant the world to me. I didn't have much family support, so Sam's encouragement was like fuel for my fire. Over the next 2 years, I worked on that project non-stop. I put everything I had into it. Late nights, early mornings, and every spare dollar I could scrounge up. And the thing is, I didn't just share my progress with Sam. I involved them. They weren't just a cheerleader. They became a partner. I'd bounce ideas off them, ask for feedback, and even let them handle some minor parts of the work. It felt like our thing, even though the concept and execution were mine. But here's the kicker. I never thought to officially protect my work. I know, rookie mistake. At the time, I thought, why bother? Sam's got my back, and no one else even knows this exists. Oh, if only I'd known. Part 2. The Big Break. After 2 long years of grinding away, it finally started coming together. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it was good enough that I could show it off. So I started reaching out to people, pitching my idea to anyone who'd listen. Small businesses, investors, even a few industry big shots. And to my surprise, people were interested. Like, really interested. One day I got an email that completely floored me. It was from a well-known company in my field. Like, the kind of company I'd always dreamed of working with. They wanted to meet and discuss my project. To say I was over the moon would be an understatement. I called Sam immediately, practically screaming into the phone. "Sam, you're not going to believe this. They're interested. This could actually happen." "Dude, that's insane," Sam said, sounding just as hyped as I was. "I told you this was genius. You're going to kill it." I felt unstoppable. The meeting was set for 2 weeks later, and I spent every second of that time preparing. I polished my pitch, rehearsed my presentation, and made sure every detail of my project was flawless. Sam helped me out a lot during this time, which I was beyond grateful for. They even helped me refine some of the talking points for the presentation. The day of the meeting, I was a nervous wreck. Sam came over that morning to hype me up, and we had this whole "you got this" pep talk. They even said, "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you, man. You've worked so hard for this." Hearing that made me feel like I could conquer the world, and honestly, the meeting went great. Like, better than I ever could have imagined. They loved my idea. They were throwing around words like potential partnership and long-term vision. I walked out of there feeling like I was on top of the world. But there was one thing I didn't notice, one tiny detail that should have set off alarm bells in my head. During the meeting, I realized I hadn't brought the finalized project files with me. It wasn't a big deal since I'd brought other materials, but I made a mental note to double-check where I'd saved them when I got home. Spoiler alert. That little oversight? Yeah, it was about to cost me big time. Part 3. The Missing Files. After the meeting, I practically floated home on a cloud of adrenaline. I couldn't wait to tell Sam all about how well it went. But first, I wanted to make sure I had everything ready for the next steps. The company had asked me to send over some specific files, prototypes, documents, that kind of thing. So I opened my laptop, went to the folder where I always kept my work, and nothing. The folder was gone. Not empty, gone, like it had never existed. I froze. My heart started pounding in my chest as I frantically searched through my computer. I checked every folder, every drive, even my backups, but the files weren't there. It was like they'd vanished into thin air. I was freaking out. Years of work, literal blood, sweat, and tears, gone. I called Sam immediately, trying to keep my voice steady. Hey, do you still have any of those drafts I sent you? My files are missing. There was this weird pause on the other end of the line. Then Sam said, let me check. I think I might still have them. Their voice sounded off, like they were distracted or something, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I was too busy spiraling. After about 10 minutes, Sam called back. Bad news, man. I must have deleted the ones you sent me. Sorry. I was crushed. I thanked them anyway and hung up, trying to figure out what the hell had happened. I mean, I'm not a tech genius, but I know my way around a computer. There was no way I'd accidentally deleted that folder. And even if I had, I would have noticed. This wasn't adding up. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking, maybe it's a glitch, maybe I'll find the files tomorrow. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Something bigger than a missing folder. And as it turned out, I wasn't just paranoid. My gut was right. Something was very, very wrong. Part 4. The betrayal unfolds. The next few days were a blur of panic and desperation. I tried everything. Data recovery software, digging through old emails, even calling up a tech-savvy friend to see if they could help me recover the files. Nothing worked. It was like my entire project had been wiped from existence. But then, about a week after the files disappeared, I saw something that made my stomach drop. I was scrolling through social media when I came across a post that looked eerily familiar. It was a teaser for a groundbreaking project in my field, something that combined art, tech, and storytelling. The description was vague, but the concept, it was exactly like mine, down to the smallest details. At first I thought, no way, it's just a coincidence. But then I saw the name attached to the post. Sam, my best friend, my confidant, the person who had been by my side through this entire journey. They were claiming my project as their own. I sat there staring at the screen, my mind racing. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I mean, this was Sam, the person I trusted more than anyone. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. The weird hesitation when I asked about the files, the overly casual sorry when they said they had deleted the drafts, the fact that they'd been just as involved in the project as I had, maybe even more so in the final months. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. How could they do this to me? After everything we'd been through, after all the trust I'd placed in them, how could they just steal my work like it was nothing? I called Sam immediately. My hands were shaking as I waited for them to pick up. When they did, I didn't even bother with pleasantries. What the hell, Sam? I just saw your post. My project. Are you serious right now? There was a long pause. Then Sam said, Look, I can explain. I didn't think you'd mind. We worked on it together, right? So it's not just your project. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you kidding me? This was my idea. I brought you in to help because I trusted you. You didn't even come up with the concept. You just helped me fine-tune it. Sam's tone shifted, turning defensive. Oh, come on. Don't act like you did everything. I put in just as much work as you did. Besides, you never officially copyrighted it or anything. What's the big deal? That last line hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated. Sam knew I hadn't taken any legal steps to protect my work. They knew they could get away with it. And in that moment, I realized they weren't just my best friend. They were my enemy. Part 5. The Fallout. After that call, I was seething. My hands were shaking, and my heart was racing like I'd just run a marathon. I wanted to scream, punch a wall, do something to let out the anger that was boiling inside me, but instead, I just sat there, staring at my phone, trying to figure out what the hell to do next. I thought about calling them back and yelling at them until they admitted they were wrong, but what good would that do? Sam clearly didn't care about how I felt. They'd already crossed the line, and no amount of arguing was going to undo what they'd done. So, I did what any rational person would do in that situation. I went full detective mode. I started digging through everything I had. Old messages, emails, notes, anything that could prove the project was mine. I found drafts I'd sent to Sam, screenshots of conversations where I'd pitched them the idea, and even some early sketches I'd drawn on napkins. Yes, literal napkins. It wasn't much, but it was something. I figured if this thing ever went to court, I'd at least have a paper trail to back me up. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that going legal wasn't an option. I didn't have the money to hire a lawyer, and honestly, I didn't want to spend years of my life fighting this out in court. I needed another plan, something smarter, faster, and way more satisfying. And then it hit me. I knew this project inside and out. Every detail, every flaw, every hidden feature. Sam might have the files, but they didn't have me. If they thought they could pull this off without a hitch, they were in for a rude awakening. But before I could put any plans into action, things got worse. A lot worse. Part 6. The Public Stunt. A few days after my confrontation with Sam, they went full-blown public with the project. I'm talking social media posts, teaser videos, even a slick little website with a countdown timer for the official launch. They were going all in. And the worst part? People were eating it up. The comments were full of praise. Wow, this is so innovative. Can't wait to see more. This is a game changer. It was like watching someone else live your dream. Every post felt like a dagger to the chest. But what really pushed me over the edge was when Sam did an interview with a popular blog in our field. In it, they described the project like it was entirely their idea. Like they had just woken up one day and magically dreamed it into existence. No mention of me. Not even a hint. I couldn't believe the audacity. Not only had they stolen my work, but they were now actively erasing me from the narrative. It was like I didn't exist. At first, I didn't know how to handle it. Part of me wanted to blast them online, post all my proof, and let the world see them for the fraud they were. But I knew that would just make me look bitter and unprofessional. Besides, Sam had already built up a ton of momentum, and I didn't want to come off as the jealous ex-partner trying to tear them down. So I stayed quiet, watched, waited. I knew Sam better than anyone, which meant I knew their weaknesses too. They were great at putting on a show, but when it came to actual execution, not so much. They didn't have the same level of technical skill or attention to detail that I did. And while they might have had my files, they didn't fully understand how everything worked. I decided to use that to my advantage. If Sam wanted to play dirty, fine, but two could play that game. Part 7. Planting the seeds. I knew I couldn't just sit back and let Sam get away with this, so I started crafting a plan, something subtle, something that would hit them where it hurt without them even realizing what was happening. If they wanted to steal my work, I'd make sure it backfired in the most spectacular way possible. The first thing I did was revisit the files Sam had stolen. Obviously, I didn't have access to the copies on their computer, but I still remembered the details. And that's when I realized I had an edge. Sam didn't know about the bugs. See, in the rush to get everything ready for the initial pitches, I'd left a few minor issues in the code and design. Nothing too serious, but enough to cause problems if someone wasn't paying attention. I'd planned to fix them later, but Sam had swooped in before I had the chance, which meant they were now working with an unfinished version of the project, one that I knew like the back of my hand. So I started spreading breadcrumbs. I created an anonymous account on a popular forum in our industry there, and started posting leaks about the project. At first, it was just little things, vague hints about potential flaws and inconsistencies, but as the launch date got closer, I got more specific. I pointed out technical challenges that would be hard to solve without the right expertise. The goal wasn't to sabotage the project outright, it was to plant doubt in the minds of the people watching, to make them question whether Sam was really the genius they were pretending to be. And it worked. I started seeing comments like, "This sounds cool, but how are they going to handle specific technical issue? And did anyone else notice this might have scalability problems?" Sam didn't respond to the comments, probably because they didn't have the answers. But I knew it was only a matter of time before the cracks started to show. Part 8. The cracks start to show. As the launch date approached, I could tell Sam was feeling the pressure. Their social media updates became less frequent, and when they did post, the tone was off. Instead of the confident, borderline cocky vibe they'd started with, Their captions were more subdued. It was subtle, but I could see it. The doubt was creeping in. And then launch day arrived. Sam had hyped it up for weeks. Teasers, countdowns, even a live event streamed online. I'll admit, watching the live stream was painful. Seeing my work paraded around like it was someone else's brainchild, it made my blood boil. But I kept watching because I knew what was coming. The first part of the presentation went off without a hitch. Sam showed off the concept, talked about the journey behind the project. Yeah, my journey, thanks for asking. And got plenty of applause from the audience. But then they moved on to the live demo. Now, here's the thing about live demos. They're risky. Even when everything is perfect, there's always a chance something will go wrong. And in this case, things went very wrong. The first issue was minor. A feature didn't load properly. Sam tried to laugh it off, saying something like, "Oh, you know how these things go. Tech can be unpredictable." But as the demo went on, the problems piled up. Features didn't work the way they were supposed to. Visuals were glitchy. And then, the grand finale, the big, impressive feature that was supposed to wow the audience, completely failed. The chat exploded. People were asking what was going on, why things weren't working, whether the project was even ready for launch. You could see the panic on Sam's face. They were trying to keep it together, but the cracks were impossible to hide. And the best part? I knew exactly why everything was falling apart. Those bugs I'd left behind? Yeah, they were doing exactly what I'd predicted. Without me there to fix them, Sam was floundering. But the real cherry on top came a few hours later. Part 9. The Downfall. A few hours after the disastrous launch, I got a notification that made my heart race. Not out of fear, but out of sheer satisfaction. Someone had posted a thread on a popular industry forum, dissecting the project's flaws in brutal detail. And guess what? They'd connected the dots. "This project feels incomplete," one commenter wrote. "It's like they rushed it without fully understanding how to execute the technical aspects. Does anyone else think this was built on someone else's work?" Another commenter chimed in. "Actually, yeah. I remember seeing a similar concept discussed online a couple of years ago. I think someone else came up with this, and they might have stolen it." That thread blew up fast. People started digging into the project's history, and it wasn't long before someone stumbled across one of my old posts, an early concept sketch I'd shared on a small forum ages ago. It was unmistakable. Same structure, same core idea, same everything. The conversation quickly shifted from, "Wow, what a cool project," to, "Wait a second. Who really made this?" And then, someone tagged me. I stared at the notification for a good 5 minutes, debating whether I should respond. Part of me wanted to stay out of it, to let Sam crash and burn on their own. But another part of me knew this was my chance to set the record straight. "So," I replied, I kept it professional, sticking to the facts. I explained how I'd come up with the idea years ago, how I'd developed it from scratch, and how I'd shared the details with someone I thought I could trust. I even posted screenshots of my notes, emails, and sketches as proof. The response was overwhelming. People were furious, not just at Sam, but on my behalf. The industry can be cutthroat, sure, but stealing someone's work and passing it off as your own, that's a whole new level of low. As for Sam, well, they tried to defend themselves. They claimed it was a collaboration and that they'd contributed just as much to the project. But the evidence was stacked against them. No matter what they said, people weren't buying it. And then, the final nail in the coffin, the company I'd pitched to months ago, the same one that had loved my idea, reached out to me. Part 10. Sweet Revenge. When I saw the email from that company, my heart nearly stopped. I opened it, hands trembling, and read the first few lines. They'd seen the fiasco with Sam's launch and the online uproar. They'd also seen the proof I posted and realized the truth. The project was mine. The email was short and professional, but the message was clear. "We're sorry to see what you've gone through, and we'd like to discuss a potential partnership moving forward. We're confident your expertise and vision are what's needed to bring this concept to life." I almost cried. After everything I'd been through, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the self-doubt, this was validation on a level I couldn't even put into words. But before I responded, I had one last thing to take care of. Sam. At this point, their reputation was in shambles. The botched launch had killed their credibility, and the online backlash wasn't slowing down. But I wasn't done. I wanted to make sure they understood exactly what they'd lost. So, I called them. When Sam answered, their voice was shaky, like they already knew what was coming. "Hey," they said. "I guess you're calling to rub it in?" "I don't need to rub it in," I replied, my voice calm. "You already did that to yourself." There was a pause, and then they sighed. "Look, I messed up, okay? I got caught up in the hype and I thought you could take everything I worked for and get away with it," I interrupted. "You didn't just mess up, Sam. You betrayed me, and now you're paying the price." "I'm sorry," they said, but it sounded hollow. "I really am. I didn't think it would go this far." I laughed bitterly. "It didn't go far enough for you, did it? You were fine until people figured out the truth. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught." Sam didn't respond. They just stayed quiet, and for the first time, I realized how pathetic they sounded. This person I'd once trusted with everything had turned out to be nothing more than a fraud, and now they had nothing left. "I don't need an apology," I said finally. "What I need is for you to stay out of my way, because from here on out, I'm taking back everything you tried to steal from me." And with that, I hung up. The partnership with the company moved forward, and this time, I made sure to protect myself. Contracts, copyrights, NDAs, you name it, I covered it. The project launched successfully a few months later, and it was everything I'd dreamed of. As for Sam, last I heard, they're still trying to rebuild their reputation. But in this industry, trust is everything. Once you lose it, it's almost impossible to get back. So, yeah, they stole my work. They broke my trust. But in the end, I got the last laugh. Looking back, this whole ordeal taught me a hard lesson about trust and protecting your work. It's easy to get swept up in excitement and overlook the risks, but at the end of the day, you've got to look out for yourself. If you're working on something you're passionate about, don't take shortcuts. Document everything. Protect your ideas, and most importantly, be careful who you trust, because not everyone has your back, even if they act like they do. So, what about you? Have you ever had someone betray your trust or steal your work? Drop your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you handled it. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. There's plenty more where this came from.